You ever find yourself in an argument you never even wanted, defending yourself against something that wasn't even said, and then you walk away feeling like you just lost complete control? Yeah, that wasn't an accident. That was a system. Today, we are cracking open one of the most powerful psychological weapons out there, emotional baiting, and it all starts with one single powerful idea.
This right here, this reveals the entire game. Your greatest strength, your desire for the truth, for accuracy, your need to defend your reputation, that can be turned into your biggest weakness. See, when someone figures out that you absolutely cannot stand being misrepresented, they know exactly which button to push. And just like that, you've handed them the remote control to your own mind. And that's our central metaphor for today, the social remote control. Just imagine someone else holding a device that literally dictates your emotional state, and because of that, your actions. They press the anger button, you get angry. They press defensive and you start tripping over yourself to explain. Today, we're going to take that remote apart, piece by piece, and see exactly how it works.
So let's put a pin in this and get a real definition down. Emotional baiting. It's not just a simple insult. It's a deliberate, invisible system. It's specifically designed to pit your two most valuable assets, your ego and your long-term strategy, against each other in a fight to the death. And the goal? It's to make your ego's desperate need for validation right now completely sabotage your own strategic goals for the future.
So what does this social remote control actually feel like in the moment? Before we can dismantle the mechanism, we've got to understand how it operates on us, in the real world. Let's talk about that visceral experience of being baited. It always starts with this, doesn't it? The internal flare-up. It's that hot flash in your chest, the sudden clenching in your jaw when someone says something that's just a little off. Maybe it's a backhanded compliment in a meeting, or an innocent question about your progress on a project. It's that immediate biological command inside you that screams, "Correct the record, right now."
And what's happening in your brain has a name. This flare-up, it's called an induced limbic hijack. Think of it as a hostile takeover of your rational mind. Your amygdala, which is your brain's alarm system, is just screaming threat, threat, and your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for strategy and thinking about consequences, it just goes completely offline. In that one moment, your career, your relationships, your big goals, none of it matters as much as winning this tiny, insignificant battle for your ego.
Okay, so we get the feeling, and we get the basic brain science. But what's the actual mechanism here? How is this trap built and sprung? Let's dive into the anatomy of the trap itself and see how it's constructed, step by step.
And this is the key strategic question, isn't it? Because it's never just one comment. It's a sequence, a process that is deliberately designed to transfer control from you to the manipulator. So how does it work?
Here it is, the entire system laid bare. It's a four-stage loop. First, you have the strategic scan. The manipulator is watching you. They're learning what you're proud of, what you're insecure about, basically what you value. Second comes the bait drop. They deploy a subtle, deniable little jab. Something like, "Wow, impressive, you got that done with everything else you've got going on." Third, the logical blackout. That's the limbic hijack we just talked about. You take the bait, you start explaining, you start defending. And finally, number 4, the frame capture. This is it. This is the moment the trap slams shut and the entire power dynamic flips. And the end goal of this whole loop is a complete inversion of power. The manipulator, they get to step back, all calm and collected, and position themselves as the rational observer, just watching the chaos. Meanwhile, you, completely triggered and emotional, are now the performer. You're the one putting on a show for everyone else, looking unstable or aggressive, or just way too sensitive. Now pay very close attention to this, because this is critical. The trap works because you and the manipulator are playing two totally different games. You think you're in a debate about the truth. You show up with your facts, your logic, your context, but they couldn't care less about the truth. Their only goal is friction. They just want a reaction. And the more you try to establish the truth, the more friction you create, and the more they win. Realizing that the goal is friction, not truth, is a total game changer. But you have to ask, why are we so vulnerable to this in the first place? Why do smart, strategic people fall for this over and over again? Well, the answer isn't a flaw in your character. It's a glitch in our brain's ancient programming. And this is so important. You have to remove self-blame from the equation. If you've fallen for bait, you're not weak or foolish. You're human. This vulnerability is a deeply embedded feature of our evolutionary biology. It's a survival mechanism that just hasn't gotten the memo that we're not living in the Stone Age anymore. And here is the glitch itself. To your primal brain, there's literally no difference between a social threat and a physical one. An attack on your competence, on your reputation, is processed with the same life-or-death urgency as a tiger lunging at you from the bushes. This all comes from something called Sociometer theory. And the easiest way to think about it is this. Your ego isn't just about vanity. It's a highly sensitive dashboard that is constantly monitoring your social standing. See, for our ancestors, getting exiled from the tribe meant certain death. So when someone attacks your competence, that dashboard starts flashing red alert. It doesn't feel like an insult. It feels like an existential threat.
Okay, we've taken the trap apart, we've looked at its biological roots. Now for the most important part. Let's get practical. How do you disarm this thing? How do you take back control? It's time to talk about strategic countermeasures.
The fundamental shift in your mindset has to be this. You have to move from being reactive to being anchored. A reactive person is basically a puppet, and their strings are being pulled by everything happening around them. But an anchored person, they are the calm center, observing the storm around them without ever being pulled into it.
This right here is your primary defensive weapon. The moment you feel that internal flare-up, that heat rising in your chest, you need to do something called metacognitive labeling. You consciously think to yourself, bait detected. That simple act of just naming the tactic re-engages your prefrontal cortex. It pulls you out of the hijack and puts your rational mind back in the driver's seat.
And here's a beautifully simple way to put this into practice, the 3-second rule. Before you type that reply, before you open your mouth, before you even change your facial expression, just pause. Take one slow, deliberate breath. 3 seconds. It might not seem like a lot, but that is all it takes to create a gap between the stimulus and your response. And in that gap, that's where your freedom and your power live.
So, what's the actual protocol? First, you practice that labeling. Bait detected. Second, maintain what we call strategic non-reactivity, a calm, neutral, almost detached expression. Third, if you absolutely have to respond, offer a dry, boring, factual answer that gives them zero emotional friction to work with. And finally, never, ever underestimate the power of strategic silence. It is the one response a manipulator cannot twist against you.
And just as important is what not to do. Avoid the explanation spiral at all costs. The more you explain, the more you are submitting to their frame. Remember, they don't want your data. They want your reaction. Trying to correct the record for someone who is twisting your words on purpose is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. You are literally handing them the fuel for the fire that they started.
All right, we've covered the anatomy of the trap, the psychology that makes it all work, and the countermeasures to disarm it. So let's bring this all together with the final, crucial takeaway: how to stop biting the hook for good.
Let this one really sink in. If someone out there can reliably provoke an emotional reaction from you, they have control. They own a piece of your focus, your energy, and your strategic mind. True power, true sovereignty, begins with recognizing who you've been handing that remote control to.
So the ultimate lesson here is a massive shift in perspective. You are not a fish, helplessly reacting to every single piece of bait that floats by. You are the water. You set the terms of the environment where these games are even played. By understanding the system, you can simply refuse to play. Stop biting the hook, and you will realize you own the entire ocean.